Hi friends, so this tutorial is about how to find live hosts in your network using Nmap. So Nmap is a utility that is used to detect live hosts on your network, to scan for open ports in your hosts, or to scan open ports on your target hosts. So there are many other functionalities that are provided by Nmap, which I will be covering in the next few tutorials. So this is the first tutorial in this series, and the first one I will be only showing how to find live hosts in your network. So before I start, one thing I want to make very clear is that use these techniques only on networks where you're allowed to do it. Don't use it on networks or places in your office or anywhere if you don't have permission, or if you don't have written permission from your superiors or your clients to do it. So because if you do it, you can get into serious trouble for doing this. So only and only use it if you are permitted to do it, if you have permission to use it, or you're allowed to do it. So let's get started. Now, what we will be using is, as I mentioned previously, is Nmap. So Nmap stands for Network Mapper. It can be used for many different purposes. In this first one, I will be just demonstrating how to find live hosts on the network using Nmap. So in here, the thing about Nmap is that it's mostly used by system administrators or penetration testers. So what system administrators they do, sometimes they have to discover all the hosts that are running on their environments, and then um, through that they can, if maybe they want to send patches to it or run a script on it. So it is a very easy way of detecting all the hosts that are running in your environment, instead of going from office to office and checking all the computers which are running, checking their MAC addresses and IP addresses, etc. So this makes their task a lot easier. Also for penetration testers, it is very easy because it gives them an overview or understanding of the system or the environment in which they are operating. So this tutorial will be about how to enumerate or how to find live machines on the network, on your LAN or local area network. So this is not for scanning for or finding hosts that are outside of your local area network. So this is just for hosts that are inside your network or LAN. Now Nmap is a better way of testing for live machines than ping utilities, or just using the ping utility, because the thing with ping is that it uses echo request, and most firewalls block it. Like the current Windows machines that come in the market, they have their Windows firewall enabled by default, and by default what it does is that it blocks all the ICMP echo requests. So if you're pinging a Windows machine and you're not receiving any response, you might think that it's down, but it's not. It's because that by default, these Windows machines, they have blocked ICMP echo request. However, Linux machines, they allow it, so it ping usually works with Linux machines, but it doesn't work with Windows machines. So the thing with Nmap is that it sends as additional probes. So if you're using Nmap, it doesn't just send a ICMP echo request. It sends additional probes to detect it. What probes? I will explain that in the next few slides. So once you run this, you can identify the MAC address of the client which you're scanning or which you're enumerating. So if you run it against a particular host, you can, if that host is up and running, you can identify its MAC address. And once you have identified its MAC address, you can also, it's very easy to identify the vendor of the target machine, because a MAC is usually MAC, not usually, it's always 48 bytes, and the first 24 bytes of it is specifically assigned to different organizations like Apple, Cisco, Dell, etc. Because it usually what it does is that the first 24 bytes, if you find it, you can easily find what vendor is supplying that machine. So there's, I think, some databases online which you can use to find out the MAC address or the machine that is running that particular MAC address. So Nmap supports host discovery techniques, and probes can be customized for each individual host. So these probes that you're sending, it can be customized for each host. So it doesn't have to be the same probes that are sent to every machine. You can customize it using Nmap. I will be teaching you how to do that in the next few tutorials. So in this tutorial, we will be using this option, SN. What it does is that it disables port scanning. Port scanning is used to check for what ports are up and running. For this tutorial, I'll be just covering how to find live hosts. So once you find live host, then you can port scan it. So let's first find what hosts are up and running. So you can do that by using SN option. So if you're running this SN option, or you're using Nmap as an unprivileged user, which it is not recommended by the way, so it's a good practice to run it as a privileged user. However, if you're not running it as a root, or you're running it as an unprivileged user, what it does is that it sends a SYN packet to port 80 and 443. So port 80 is HTTP and port 443 is the HTTPS ports. So if you're running it as an unprivileged user, what it does is that it sends a SYN packet to these two ports to determine whether they are up and running or not. It sends that SYN packet using the connect syscall or the system call. Now, if you're running it as a privileged user, Nmap tries to do some other things, like it sends a TCP SYN packet, it sends it to port 443, it sends a SYN ACK packet to port 80. So 443, as I mentioned previously, it is HTTPS, and port 80 is HTTP. It also sends ICMP echo and timestamp requests. Echo, as I mentioned previously, is blocked on Windows machines by default. So it also sends ICMP timestamp requests to determine whether those hosts are up and running. And if you're running it as a privileged user, it also allows things like ARP and neighbor discovery. So ARP is used to discover the MAC address of a machine when you're using IPv4, and neighbor discovery is used to discover the the MAC address of a machine if you're running IPv6. So the MAC addresses and vendors are identified using this ARP and neighbor discovery. So this is how you can identify the MAC. And once you have identified the MAC, it's very easy to identify their vendors, which I will show you practically in a few seconds. Now the nmap command that we will be using is this nmap. After that, we will be typing the option sn. So sn, what it does is it basically kind of ping sweeps the network or the target. So it doesn't just specifically port scans it. It just checks whether the system is up or not. The target, this can be the IP address or the host name of the target that we are scanning. So in here, let me check this machine that I have up and running. In here, I've already run the scan. So because it takes a few seconds for it to complete, I don't want you guys to wait for a couple of minutes for this. So in here, I'm running nmap. This SN, this is the option that I mentioned previously. This is the target machine that I'm running on my lab. So this is the machine. This is Windows Server 2016. So this is starting Nmap 7.60. So this is the version of Nmap that is currently installed on the Kali. So this is Kali 3. This is saying that host is up. So this is good. What this means is that the host that I'm scanning, it's up and running and it's not down. So this is good. It identifies its MAC address. This is the MAC address of the machine that I'm scanning. This is the IP address, and this is the MAC address of it, this one. So this identifies it as an Oracle VirtualBox. So I'm running this Windows server on a VirtualBox. Now the thing that I mentioned previously is that you can very easily identify what vendor is supporting this machine by using this first 24 bytes of the MAC address, because this organization that is supposed to, I think it's, I don't know which organization it is, it assigns the first 24 bytes to each organization. It's a different for Apple. They receive different range of addresses. Microsoft will receive different. Oracle will receive different ranges. So using this, once you find the MAC address, if you Google for or search for your websites, which you can paste in your MAC address, and they can easily identify what kind of machine that you are running. So this is it for this tutorial, guys. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to put it in the comment section. And again, I mentioned that this tutorial is just for educational purposes. Don't use it in environments where you're not allowed, where you're not permitted, or where you do not have permission from your seniors or clients, etc. So only use it in your private lab, or use it where you have permission. Don't run it in places you're not supposed to, because you can get in serious trouble for doing it. This video, it was just for educational purposes. So this is it for this tutorial, guys. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to put it in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one.